Tammy Bruce really is one of the smartest people on TV as far as I'm concerned. Very sharp, very wise, very substantive, very nice lady. Tammy Bruce has a brand new book out, Fear Itself, Exposing the Left's Mind-Killing Agenda. Tammy Bruce, how are you?
I am good, and it's a pleasure to be on with you. You, television and radio, in times like these, give everyone, including myself, a focus and a place to kind of rest and think and get things right. So thank you for everything you do.
Well, you're a sweetheart. Thank you. Now, let's do a little bit of your background, because you know from where you came and you know who these people are better than anybody else. Tell us a little bit about your background. And the book, folks, is great. Fear Itself, Exposing the Left's Mind-Killing Agenda, Amazon.com, any major bookstore. And you'll see why, in addition to what you see on Fox with Tammy Bruce, why she really knows what she's talking about, Tammy, don't you?
Well, I do, and I have been committed to making sure that my time on the left, coming from the organized feminist movement and really being a cart pusher for the left, was not in vain. That the things that I learned must be known by everyone. There's a reason why I left. And I think that this book in particular, the core of it, is about the weaponizing of fear to control people, to gain more power, to gain more money. And of course, the system does it. It's an ancient technique. It's a technique we've seen, of course, most recently with COVID, but it is ancient. I mean, it's all the time. And I want people to understand that everything they're experiencing is not organic. It's not natural. It's not a new normal, as Barack Obama would say. It is not something you have to adapt to. It is a liquid fear that has been poured onto society, which really, once it moves from transitory, which is the gift of fear, so we can, make reasonable decisions about what to do with our lives, to a chronic fear, and then to mass anxiety, which completely takes out our ability to think reasonably and with logic. And that is when we give up to the government and we do as we're told. And what has happened to the world and the country, it's a dumpster fire, because this continues to be applied every day, from the economy to the assassination attempt, to still complaints that democracy will be destroyed if Trump is elected, to getting fired if you don't use the right pronouns, to watching guys get onto women's swim teams and into women's sports. Mm-hmm. The lies that make us not know or really believe that there's nothing we can trust. All of this ruins our lives, but we can overcome it. But it is at the core, Mark, of what the left does, because they've got to have you sitting down and too afraid to speak up. And I want to smash that.
And you do. Brilliantly put. Your book is fantastic. And one of the things you point out is they're getting more and more and more extreme in what they are saying. And it is. It's dangerous the way they talk now, isn't it?
Well, it's meant to be. That's the point. And I look at a few case studies in one chapter about what can happen because of the rhetoric on top of everything else. The Justice Kavanaugh situation, the hideousness of Kamala Harris in the Senate, just ripping that guy apart, leading that wolf pack attack on that decent man, led to a young man who was clearly mentally unstable to try to assassinate him. This is not about moving the true believers to kill somebody. It's anybody who is mentally unstable becomes part of that army that you can tip them over. This Crooks guy who murdered Corey and injured two others and injured the president. Those are the people. And the problem is, even with the baseball diamond with Steve Scalise, they know it. And what was Biden doing just a little bit ago today? Talking about how the Speaker of the House was also dead on arrival, because Johnson was talking about how the whole Supreme Court stuff was dead on arrival. And he says, yeah, well, so is he. This is obscene, but it's dangerous. And it's clearly with President Trump. It's like they're over it. They're trying to, it's censorship. They're trying to memory hole it now, because they know it exposes the nature of the chaos that they want. because they can't, their theories and their policies are so fragile. And what they say is so dumb that they can only survive if people are afraid to speak up. And they've done it with changing language. They've done it with pronouns. They've created insane scenarios so that you don't know which way is up. But the book looks at the history of this. And again, it's thousands of years of systems doing this to people and how it's applied here. It's climate change, the existential threat. It's, of course, the BLM riots, the nature of urban violence, unpredictable, strange violence that keeps you crazy. And, of course, not having enough money in your pocket adds another level of fear.
Mm-hmm. And as you point out in the book so brilliantly, they're breaking us down. Here we are, independent, strong-willed, free-will Americans, and they just are constantly breaking us down through propaganda, through bureaucracy, through actions, through attacks, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and the problem is, because it's like a roller coaster, we're holding on, and we tend to not have time to look up because we're trying to pay our rent and raise our families. But if you look at this, the fact is that it's deliberate. Some people excuse it as that they mean well and that it's just a few people. It's not. This is a deliberate strategy that is old as time, that the left has always used. It's like a cancer. The cancer doesn't care about the survival of the body. It is this serious, and clearly, as we've already seen, it is only going to get worse, but it relies on the average person being a bit unaware of it, and it makes you more vulnerable to it. But it's really, the last chapter is about breaking the spell, and it is a spell. And I give people methods in which to get out of it, because I know what we were worried about on the left was, first, we laughed at the fact that Republicans would do nothing to stop us. And this is a good 30, 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. But it was also that we knew that they didn't understand that it was their decency that we thought would be their biggest Achilles heel. Because if somebody calls you a racist, you think, it's like, oh my gosh, they must be serious. But when that comes up, I tell people to behave with any names as though you've just been called a Cocker Spaniel. You don't suddenly look for the tail on your butt because you know you're not. And it's courage that defeats all of this. It's courage we already have. And part of it is hearing people like you seeing the example of President Trump, the example of his rally goers at Butler, that everybody had courage. And that is what we need to have. It is inherent in us as Americans. And it's just about having people show us and then realizing that all of us can do it. And we're going to have to, because the country's at stake, obviously.
Yeah. We're here with Tammy Bruce, folks. I want you to grab a copy of her great book. It is very, very crucial right now. Fear Itself, Exposing the Left's Mind-Killing Agenda. Get it at Amazon.com, any major bookstore. Fear Itself. And we have it linked on all of our social sites, so please check it out. Easy to grab and very important. And when you're done reading it, share it with somebody else. Tammy Bruce, I want to get into this decency issue, and then I want to get into Kamala Harris. I mean, you spent a lot of your life in California. You know who she is better than most, both from a left perspective and from actually living under her rule for a period of time. So this issue of decency, explain how that's exploited.
Well, there's an expectation, and it's important that we have manners and decorum. These are things missing now in society. Of course, order is important, and values and kindness. All of those things are what makes life worth living. But the nature of that also sometimes makes you not, and this is the exploitation, is saying that everything is offensive. Saying that if you don't use my pronouns, you must be a bigot. That all the things Americans aren't, because that's a lie. But when you hear it, you don't imagine why people would lie about that. So you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and so you back up. The fact of the matter is, and Henry David Thoreau wrote this quite some time ago. He wrote, "I was not born to be forced. I will breathe after my own fashion. Let us see who is stronger." The most decent thing, I contend, that all of us, the decent among us, can do is save this country. The most decent thing is to save the future. The most decent thing is to make sure your children, you sit down with your kids to watch the Olympics opening ceremony, and you don't have to see something hideous that then you have to discuss with your children, which maybe you didn't want to or you would do later or whatever. It is an invasion into our own homes, into our minds in particular, and even, as we know, to take our own children from us through the school systems, that state agents are somehow better off knowing how to handle your children. It is a brazen, remarkable, aggressive step to take. But Americans, very often, especially the Democrats are the first victims of this, are thinking, well, maybe that's true. Maybe I don't know what's best. The fact is you do. These are bad people. Anybody who thinks that they know better for a stranger's child has something up their sleeve. They do not mean well. And I think that for all those of us who've come from the left, those of us who've been within that system, we watched this being developed. I wrote about it 25 years ago, that children, they were starting to look at children. So this is the nature of it, and it's true in some ways. They rely on our decency to get away with what they're doing and for their plan to work, because you question yourselves. And the issue is, none of these people mean well. And we see where they're headed. The condition of our lives proves that at this point.
Mm-hmm. And then Kamala Harris, isn't she sort of the accumulation of all these problems?
She is. Perfect example of the nature of what happened. Look, it's the West Coast, even the Western United States, where there's supposed to be radical individualism. People are there because they don't want to be, dealing with authority and all of that. And that, too, then is exploited in that, in order to remain, it's like, in order to remain free, we've got to take more control. The irony of that, like we're doing now, in order to save democracy, we have to destroy it. And people buy that garbage because of the mass anxiety involved with the issues we face every day that they have created. And through media moves it, of course. The film and television move it. California is like a mining town of mass communication, Silicon Valley. And it is also, my goodness, about money. That all these restrictions on the hoi polloi, where you can't eat meat, you can't barbecue, you can't fly, you can't drive the cars you want to drive, and they do it all because it's the only way they can show themselves that they're better than us. It is a remarkable power grab. She is the epitome of the problem with the Democrats, but with the left. For her to be effectively encouraging Hamas with the I see you, I hear you, and the problem, the issues in Gaza. And just after that is when they massacre 12 children. Where has she been? All of these written statements are written by staff. She has never uttered a condemnation of that terrorist group. And it's all in the open. And it's not a mistake. They don't mean well. They mean what they're doing. And I want my book, if I can do anything to get redemption for the time that I was on the left, to encourage people first to know this, to see it for what it is, because you can't defeat what you don't see, and for the very personal techniques I suggest that get us out of this frame of mind. And it's a remarkable experience because I've gone through it myself.
You don't need redemption. You've been fighting the good fight for decades now, and very, very solid. And we all love to see you on Fox and hear from you and so forth. Folks, this is a fantastic book. Fear Itself, Exposing the Left's Mind-Killing Agenda. Somebody who knows them well, and not just because many decades ago she participated in this and got a taste of it, but because today she's a smart lady, she's substantive, and she's one of the better people out there to present our perspective. Then I guess my last question, Tammy Bruce, is this. Mm-hmm. You are very supportive of President Trump. Tell us why.
Very much. Because he is a radical individual. He's honest. Sometimes it gets him in trouble, but we know who we're dealing with. He loves this country. He loves us. I think he fell in love with us during the first campaign in 15 and 16. Mm-hmm. But I saw it happen. And he is successful. He doesn't just talk about doing things. He then does them. It was going to take 30 years to get rid of ISIS because, they like that kind of chaos and fear running the world. He did it in 18 months. He doesn't take no for an answer. And even as we were talking about decency, J.D. Vance under fire right now because he's a decent guy. He's a decent, honest guy. And it's these are people we want as leaders because, my God, the house is on fire. And they are the only ones who can put that fire out and rebuild that house. And it's our generation that is responsible for what happens coming up. We got, what do we have, 99, 98 days?
Yeah, that's
well, this is God's assignment. This is our job now. And we can do it. And thank God he stayed. Thank God Trump had the backbone to not back down because anybody else would have. No one else could have withstood what the left did to him. And it made them hate him more. And their hate is going to consume them. It exposed who and what they are to us. And we now have to make sure that they know that we are the ones who are stronger, and we are the ones who will prevail.
The book is Fear Itself, Exposing the Left's Mind-Killing Agenda. You can jump right now to Amazon.com, or if you're on any of my social sites now or soon, you can jump there as well. I think you're going to really benefit from this book. Tammy Bruce, God bless you, my friend. Keep it up, and thank you, and good luck with this outstanding book.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Take care of yourself, folks. Good book, really.